All right. So welcome to the 78th episode of the Revolutionary Code, where we bring the truth about how governmental politics actually works in every facet of human existence and how that affects our people, Black people here in America, Africa, and the diaspora. I'm your host, Brother Tamani M. Wandani out of Houston, Texas. I'm the direct revolutionary product of the efforts of the Shrines of the Black Madonna to build a nation within a nation for Black people since 1953. I'm also the founder of the Black Gold Nation, and my co-host is the chief consultant of the Black Gold Nation's National Political Strategy and Implementation Department. He's also over our Adult Education Division, and he's the chairman of LACE, Liberation Advocates for Community Empowerment, the intellectual gangster, corporate grassroots revolutionary, and master domino assassin from Shreveport, Louisiana, aka The Boot, Brother Craig B. Lee. Brother Craig, how you doing this evening?
I am absolutely wonderful in this great Louisiana weather. It's not too hot and it's not cold, so it's just right, and I am great.
Cool. All right, so before we get started this evening, let me tell you a little bit about the Black Gold Nation as usual. What we're trying to do is put our people in a position by which we can own and or control the environment where we live, because we've come to the conclusion that when we are not in control, we get treated badly. When we don't control the political levers that govern and affect our lives, other people do, and they always treat us poorly. When we allow other people to control any aspects, any systems within that environment that other people control, we always find ourselves on the bottom or very close to the bottom of that system, regardless if it's the political system, the economic system, educational system, spiritual system, security systems. When other people control the space entirely, or when they control aspects of the space, we always lose completely, or we find ourselves at the bottom. So since we no longer want to be in a losing position, since we no longer want to be at the bottom of anything, we want to put our people in a position to have the kind of power that we need so we can affect and control those things that affect and govern our lives. So every single thing we say and do is about bringing our people together to find the right people, because we understand that at the end of the day, if we're not aggressively pursuing power to protect our people and do what we need to do, then we're wasting time and we don't have a bunch of it to waste. So Brother Craig and I are not just here to inform and educate you. We're trying to get you to do something. We want to inform, educate, motivate, mobilize, organize, and build. Again, everything we say and do is about bringing our people together to find the right people, so we can have a cadre of the right thinking Black people who are ready, willing, and able to do what's required to put our people in a position to control the spaces where we live. So tonight's show title is The Savage Reality of American Politics and How We Flip Public Policy in Our Favor. The Savage Reality of American Politics and How We Flip Public Policy in our favor. As I have said multiple times before, Brother Craig often shares with me videos that deals with different aspects of our reality, and he shared one, a jewel of a video a few days ago, and we're going to watch that. I was able to do some research and find a longer clip. The one that Brother Craig sent me was almost a minute. And the one that I found might be a minute and a half. It's not that much longer, but there is a bit more to it. So we're going to watch that clip, and then we're going to, of course, come back and have the conversation about what was said and what the conversation was about. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly, then we'll get into it. Here we go. All right, can y'all see my screen? Two people there?
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes.
Cool. All right, thank you, Naru. Thank you, Brother Craig. Here we go.
Few particulars that make Omaha different from New York are just incidental. The problem exists because white people think that particulars that make Omaha different from New York are just incidental. The problem exists because white
I didn't do that.
Particulars that make Omaha different from New York are just incidental. The problem exists because white people think they're better than Black people. to oppress us, and they want us to allow ourselves to be oppressed.
This is I agree with you perfectly. This is the basic problem.
Then what do you
that white people think they're better than others?
I can't solve the problem. You guys pull the strings that close schools. You guys draw the boundaries that keep our kids restricted to the ghetto. You guys write up the restrictive covenants that keep us out of houses. So it's up to you to talk to your brothers and your sisters and persuade them that they have a responsibility. We've assumed ours for over 400 years, and we're tired of this kind of stuff now. We're not going to suffer patiently anymore. No more turning the other cheek. No more blessing our enemies. No more praying for those who despitefully use us. We're going to show you that we've learned the lessons you've taught us. We've studied your history, and you did not take over this country by singing "We Shall Overcome." You did not gain control of the world like you have it now by dealing fairly with a man and keeping your word. You're treaty breakers, you're liars, you're thieves, you rape entire continents and races of people. Then you wonder why these very people don't have any confidence or trust in you. Your religion means nothing. Your law is a farce, and we see it every day. You demonstrated it in Alabama. And I can say you because you're part of the whole system. You profit from it. In fact, you make your living from it. You couldn't walk around and talk to people, stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach nice little songs and say, now we're going to give thanks to the Lord for he is good and old Jesus be among us. As far as we're concerned, your Jesus is contaminated, just like everything else you've tried to force upon us is contaminated. Well, so you can have him. And here's what I'll say. I wish you would follow Jesus like we followed him. Because if you did that, then we'd be in charge tomorrow. I think the problem is so bad that we can have no understanding at all.
You think it's gotten to the point where there can never be that reconciliation?
No. You talk about justice, and it means one thing to you, and we talk about it and means something else to us. And it'll always be that way. And I'd like you to know I have a terrible feeling against preachers, because I think you guys are the ones who are largely responsible for the problem in the first place. And you can accept it or not any way you choose. And for you, this may be an excursion, you know, across the line.
What about the person that wants to listen? I genuinely feel that I want to listen.
Well, if you listen and try to do something, you get kicked out of your church. See, that's the way your people are.
Well, we can make changes, right? So the changes that have come have been drastic.
God bless you, little brother. Come back and see us again sometime. And don't look back in anger. Thanks for taking so...
All right. So awesome clip. So the brother that's speaking in the video, his name is Ernie Chambers, and I didn't know who the brother was, but I was able to find some information on it. Brother Craig, did you know who he was already?
No, I didn't know who it was until I saw that video and I pulled a little information up.
Okay. Well, you might find this interesting. What's happening, Queen Mother?
How you doing today?
I'm glad you made it. So brother Ernie Chambers is an American politician and civil rights activist who represented North Oklahoma's 11th district in Nebraska State Legislature from 1971 to 2009, and again from 2013 to 2021. He cannot run in 2020 due to term limits. Chambers is the longest serving state senator in Nebraska history, having represented North Omaha for 46 years. For most of his career, Chambers was the only non-white senator. He is the only African-American to have run for governor and the first to run for U.S. Senate in Nebraska history. For years, he was the only openly atheist member of any state legislature in the United States. So I didn't know the brother was a politician, and he said he was political activist, which is one of my questions later on. So it's interesting that he was in politics the way that he was.
Yeah.
So that's cool. All right, so the first question, despite the evidence as it relates to the symptoms of our problems, there are only two, which you stated repeatedly. One, white supremacy racism, which we can't affect or control, and two, Black empowerment, which if we had it, the first issue wouldn't be as much of an issue. So per what brother Ernie states to the white pastor, who's the guy's actually a preacher, he says, quote, "It's up to you to talk to your brothers," end quote. What kind of white person would do that, Brother Craig? What kind of white ally would be of benefit and use to Black people? And do you think any of them exists today?
Well, we know the answer to that is the John Brown
There you go.
pale skin, and that's a rare find. I believe they do exist. It's not my job to go and find them.
Yes, sir.
It's their job to link up with us, but we have to be open-minded. If you understand my political philosophy of culturalism, my philosophy is focused on grassroots people, regardless of ethnicity, coming together around the concept of freedom, just cultural respect, and equity. And regardless of the ethnic persuasion that you are born into, we now solidify that. So with those grassroots white folks, if they show themselves visible, then we can work with them, but they would have to show themselves in a fashion like John Brown. He is the standard for any white person, and that seeks to say that they're about the business of transforming any city, any county, any state, or definitely the United States.
Awesome. And for those who don't know who John Brown was, can you give a little information on that dude?
So John Brown was, for all intents and purposes, a white grassroots revolutionary who actually mentored Frederick Douglass. And he was about the business of eliminating white supremacy racism and freeing Black folks. And his concept of doing so was killing white folks. That was his concept. You had to kill white folks in order to eliminate the system of white supremacy and racism. And he had he served formerly in the Union Army and got out and became a bigger grassroots revolutionary. And he ended up, his sons, and a few other grassroots Black folks, they ended up trying to take over a fort in the Battle of Harper's Ferry in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and was doing very well. But we know what happened. Some Negro snitched and let it be known that they were coming to overthrow and take the military weapons and the ammunition, and they were subsequently captured, and they were hung. And so John Brown goes down in history as one of the greatest grassroots revolutionaries to ever exist. And the funny thing about John Brown, I remember in 2013 when I first heard Umar Johnson speak in Dallas, Texas, at the Pan-African Connection, and he said a disrespectful comment to John Brown about John Brown. And I think one of his partners had a poster of John Brown on his wall. And Umar goes around, of course, promoting Frederick Douglass. And, outside of speeches, Frederick Douglass was never about that life.
Yeah.
Okay? Was never about that life. Yeah. And it was just interesting how he disrespected John Brown simply because he was pale skinned. But he elevated Frederick Douglass, although Frederick Douglass' father was a slave owner, right? And when Frederick Douglass escaped to freedom, it was John Brown who mentored him in a lot of what he came to know as the revolutionary speeches that he actually made. And ultimately his second wife was a pale skin. And so it's just interesting how he articulated that, but now that's your standard. And he damn near is the standard for regardless of any ethnic group,
right?
In terms of his willingness to sacrifice his life for what he truly believed in. And that was that all humans deserve to be able to tap into their purpose in life without being oppressed. And he was willing to die for that.
So next question. Brother Ernie goes on to state a quote: "The problem exists because white people think they're better than Black people, and they want to oppress us, and they want us to allow ourselves to be oppressed." End quote. So, Brother Craig, what empirical evidence can you share with us to reinforce and drive home that statement that Brother Ernie said, as far as the problem existing because white people think they're better than Black people, they want us to allow them to oppress us?
Well, again, and Ernie was very intelligent, especially at that time. But again, words matter.
Yep.
Again, that's not a problem. That's a symptom of the problem of, number one, white supremacy and the system of racism. But more importantly, that's not the symptomatic ailment that drives white supremacy racism. What drives white supremacy racism is not a whole component of them believing that they are better. It is what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talked about in her Cress Welsing theory of the fear of white genetic annihilation. That's the real driving force. The so-called being better than the African descendant is just a unintended outcome, a spinoff of the fear of white genetic annihilation. But that is the core reason, because you got to think about it. If you really thought about what Martin Luther King promotes, we shall overcome, everybody comes together, loves everybody, and there's equity and resources for everybody. At the end of the day, what happens to white folks?
They get melanated out.
Exactly, they disappear.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you got to think about this. Martin Luther King didn't even think about it because his desire to be with white folks was so strong, he didn't even understand what he was talking about. But at the end of the day, if there was an even playing field in this world, white folks would genetically be annihilated.
That's right.
Based on that reality. That's just a fact.
Yeah, and they know that.
And the architects and the engineers know that, right? So they have to create they have to create a system to create the illusion that opportunity exists when it really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not for the masses of people, not for everybody, only for those people who can navigate these toxic waters. Because again, capitalism is predicated on the creation, maintenance, and expansion of a permanent underclass.
That's right.
So while you're creating the illusion of the opportunity, you have to simultaneously create a system to keep people down, which creates the opportunity for the people who really don't know how this really works.
Yep.
So they go around, and I remember asking this white guy who was on the Shreveport City Council, the school board, Cattle Parish School Board. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep. And, that was my last occupation in corporate America. And I had him speaking at our Tuesday morning breakfast a few years ago, 4 years ago, as a matter of fact. And we were downtown at Crystal Stairs, right across the street from the courthouse. And there was several homeless people out in front of the courthouse. And I said, Don, how did you become a pharmaceutical sales rep? And he said, man, through hard work and my degree and perseverance and all this. And I said, that's not how you became a pharmaceutical sales rep. And he said, what do you mean? I said, that's how you became a pharmaceutical sales rep. And I pointed to the homeless people out on the sidewalk. And he was like, what do you mean? And I say, look, man, the opportunity for you to become a pharmaceutical sales rep is contingent on them unplugging from the system.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really want to see how devastating capitalism truly is, just imagine if everybody got straight A's.
Yeah.
And there was nobody to drop out of school, and all of the schools were blue ribbon schools. All the lies that America tells every single day.
Yeah.
So if everybody was excelling and nobody was dropping out and everybody was going to liberal arts college or trade school and everybody had all of this wonderful education, who's gonna pick the trash?
Yeah.
Who's gonna bust the tables, right? And so within that overall dynamic, that's where the hypocrisy of this system comes into to play, and that's the tap dance that one has to actually rock and roll with. So that is the reality of why the architects and engineers do what they do. It's not because they think they're better. The architects know they're not better.
Mhm.
That's why they have to push the white supremacy deal. But at the end of the day, they know it's about white genetic annihilation.
Right.
And that's what Frances Cress Welsing talks about. And if everybody here has not learned about the Cress Welsing theory, she needs to be, y'all need to become very aware with what she was promoting.
Yeah, cool. Next question, brother Ernie states, he says, quote, "It's up to you to talk to your brothers and your sisters and persuade them that they have responsibility. We've assumed ours for over 400 years," end quote. So I didn't know what responsibility he was referring to when he said we've assumed ours. So what do you think Brother Ernie was referring to when he makes that statement? Because I didn't get that.
Well, again, that's more idealism and rhetoric. What he's talking about is being accountable and responsible for elevating yourselves and coming into a civil discourse and taking care of your communities and things of that nature. So that's idealistic, what he was talking about, even on our end.
Yeah.
That existed to a degree as a byproduct of segregation coming out of chattel slavery. But again, like I tell you and other people, those were more illusions. Black Wall Street and all these things in Durham, North Carolina, and throughout the country, they were more illusions more than reality. They existed, but they existed inorganically because our people were forced to deal with each other.
Right.
So we were able to mask the mental trauma of what slavery had done to us, which created a psychotic mindset of distrust and hatred for each other.
Yep.
But because we couldn't move around, we were forced to collaborate and work together, which gave the illusion that, man, we did all of these great things. But see, the litmus test came when the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed.
That's right.
And then they put this illusion together called integration. So now from 1974 to now, you got to ask the question, we had over 200 Black towns at one point in time throughout the country. Now we have less than 30. Why is that?
Yeah.
Because now that Negro who was rolling with Mr. Tucker during segregation now says, Mr. Tucker, your ice just ain't colder than Mrs. Zawoski's ice. So we got to go to Mrs. Zawoski because, and you know, the schools, we want our children to do better. We can't get the same education in the Black schools. So now you see the destruction of our so-called Black Wall Streets throughout the United States.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole thing actually comes into play. And this is what we're still fighting to this very day.
That's right. That's right. Okay, cool. Next question. And I think because the more I listen to it, like the first time, I'm like, man, this brother is really on point. He's hitting all these points, blah, blah, blah. But then when I went back through it, preparing for the show, he makes a few idealistic comments. And the next question, I'm pretty sure it's the same answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. And when you really listen to what he's saying, because he says we a lot, but I don't know if he's ever taken time to. Well, anyway, let me ask the question. I'm sure it'll be the same answer. So next question, quote, Brother Ernie, quote, "We're not going to suffer impatiently anymore. No more turning the other cheek. No more blessing our enemies. No more praying for those who despitefully use us," end quote. So the question, where do you see that Black people have stopped doing these things? This is the question to you, Brother Greg. Is this another example of a Black person speaking on behalf of Black people without connecting with Black people first? more idealism? Is this an example of building a house from the roof down?
Yeah, it's all of those things. More idealism, more fantasy, and he's trying to use the fear tactic with this white guy because I mean, think about it now. This is a white preacher.
Yeah.
White preachers don't represent anybody, so this is a way for Brother Chambers to demonstrate the fact that he's read certain books, and it's like, you know, so we ain't. So because he's speaking for himself,
That's right.
he's projecting on all of us. And I mean, you got to think about it. At the time that he was saying this, guess what was going on in New York? Goddamn, the heroin trade was going on.
Okay.
In New York, right? So here you got Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes, and you got cats trying to be Superfly going on at the same time, right? This is coming out of the Vietnam War. So it's about projecting the perspective on him. And as you just articulated, just a snippet of some of the things that he did. Okay, he goes back to his native state, right? He gets in politics, right? He becomes the only Negro in the state legislature, right? To do what? To do what?
That's one of my questions that we're gonna get to, but
what? Not a damn thing. So again, I love our people, and I love Brother Ernie. I love what he was articulating, but he didn't understand, just like the Black Panther Party did not understand the complexity of this philosophy, system, and game.
Yeah.
I give them all the credit and applause for getting in the fight, getting in the struggle. But when you don't know what you're dealing with this game, you will make certain statements that you will have to then come back and now readjust because you're making them from a very limited perspective of information, damn sure experience, expertise, understanding, comprehension, knowledge, and understanding of the subject matter that you're talking about. And so that's why Martin Luther King, before he was assassinated, he had to go back and say, I regret that I've integrated our people into a burning building, right? And to be honest with you, Martin Luther King and his crew, they single-handedly helped destroy the economic
that's right. Integration. Yeah.
Of what was going on positive through segregation.
Yeah.
And if you read, there's a book, I'll have it next week, but it's called Teaching Equality, Black Schools During the Era of Jim Crow. And it's only 60-something pages, but this white guy by the name of Adam Fairclough writes this book, and it's a phenomenal book. And you go through it, and you look at the legal arguments that Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston made to help destroy Black schools.
Yeah.
Because their premise was, if Black folks start going to white schools, whoa, we not understanding the real hatred
that's right.
that the white folks have because of what? Not because they're really better, but because of what? White genetic annihilation. You see?
But do you think that white people in the South on that level were thinking, if we allow these colors to come hang out with us, then it's going to affect the overall color dynamics? You think they were thinking on that level at that time in the South? Or was it just hate of people of color?
It was a combination. It was the hatred drove that dynamic, again, with the architects and the engineers. The regular white person bought into the propaganda.
Right. They were pawns.
Were better.
I got you. Okay. Yeah.
So again, you got multiple things working at the same time.
Right.
Always remember, you got 3 levels of information dissemination. Exoteric, for the bottom folks, that's the propaganda. So that's, oh, we're just better than the Negro. Then you got the mesoteric. That's the people that's going to manage the people at the bottom. So they're given a little bit more information. It's like, boom, yeah, I think we're better, but simultaneously, we got to keep these Negroes out because they seem to be kind of damn smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the highest level, you got the esoteric, ESOTERIC.
Yeah.
That's your core group, the architects and the engineers. They know they're not better, right? So they got to create the paradigm to convince the people at the bottom that they are better, because they know the ultimate mission is white genetic annihilation. We cannot allow that to go on.
Yeah.
And because they're never going to tell the truth
Mm-hmm.
about that, that's what's going to always create the perpetual racial conflict in the world, because they would have to admit that they are inferior based on the genetic makeup, and they're never going to do that.
So I do not believe that Trump is at the top of this thing. I don't think he's an architect, engineer. He might be a manager. But what you just described sounds like January 6th, where Trump got all these white people, most of them working class, motivated, screaming and yelling, and they stormed the White House. They stormed the White House.
Yeah.
Not the White House. They stormed the Capitol, I think. Yeah, and they had to evacuate. But most of these people are working class white folks who bought into the idea that, you know, you're trying to steal our country from us. You're trying to steal the system, and they don't really understand that they're being played by people on a higher level.
Exactly.
But Trump will be considered a manager, right? Not an architect or an engineer, right? Because he's a aristocrat.
Yeah, he's a man. He is what would be called in their system an oligarch.
Oligarch, okay.
He's not the plutocrat, but he's an oligarch. He's in the mix.
Right.
And to your point, if you remember on that day, Trump, his family, his team, they were watching everything play out.
That's right.
On the screen in the tent.
That's right.
That's why I love Trump.
Yeah.
I love Trump because Trump is the castor oil for Negroes.
Yeah.
Trump was necessary to now get Negroes into a position of understanding. Look, man, this is how it's always been. But just because you can go to Papa Do's and go to Walmart now, ain't nothing changed. It's still the same game.
Right.
The consumerism thing flipped, which gave you that illusion, and now you can, you know, take cruises on Carnival and, you know, all the ships that sail and all of that. But the reality still remains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so Trump was needed in order to expose how the majority of white folks really roll.
Right.
And Negroes still don't get it.
That's right.
And so just like what happened this past week with the Negro female being, you know, positioned on the Supreme Court,
Mm-hmm.
white husband, the vice president being positioned in her position, white husband. We just really don't understand the complexity of how this game actually rolls, man. We just don't get it, man.
Yeah, I can dig it. Okay. Next question. Brother Ernie goes on to apply, and based on your previous answers, I pretty much know the answers to this one, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Brother Ernie goes on to imply that we've learned the white man's history, and since we know that we know that he didn't take over anything peacefully, but by force, we're going to do the same thing. What's your? I can tell by your laughter what your take is, but that's the question. What's your take on this statement?
Look, man. Again, I love the brother.
Yeah.
But just idealistic rhetoric, fantasy. You can read up and see how devastating and diabolical and savage the white man is and what they've done. But bruh, the only time that we had to engage white folks based on a military mode, that passed hell in the 1800s, early 1900s.
Mhm.
And think about it, Tomas. They even at that time,
Yeah.
they had cannons and major firepower.
Yeah, gunpowder.
And what's the case analysis to prove what I'm saying? What's the case analysis what's the case analysis to prove Ernie really doesn't study history the way he believed he did? What's the number one case analysis?
Is it a war?
Yeah.
I'm either say Shaka Zulu or Vietnam.
No, Haiti.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they won the battle but lost the war. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
Because we don't understand that this thing can be fought on multiple levels. And even if you win the battle, they got homies. They got homies.
Right there, bruh.
Right. Right.
They can put embargo on you, bruh.
Yeah.
What happened to Haiti? And so now what, bruh? You won the little battle. Okay. Now we bringing the Navy in. Now we bringing our allies in. Now what? Pay us reparations.
Now you got to pay us reparations. And that's something, I mean, and that's why we say you got to give him credit.
Yeah, you got to
give him credit, man, because he's diabolical.
Diabolical. And we keep on going under this idealism because, and then here's the other thing, as you just articulated, when you get, and this, I got to mention this because I had to bring this up in a workshop years ago. This brother, the Negro can read so much they become stupid, because they don't know what the hell they be a lot of times be reading. So the dude said, I'm not an atheist, I'm agnostic. And it's not that I don't believe in a higher power, but I just don't, I got to see the evidence and all this kind of foolishness. So the atheist, of course, doesn't believe in a higher power.
Right.
And, boom, 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 okay. So now, you just announced that he believed in the concept of atheism.
Right.
Guess what he never did do?
Read
He
about it.
never did research on atheism.
Oh, okay.
It's a philosophy created by who? White folks.
That'd be white people, yeah. Yeah.
Agnosticism is a theological philosophy created by who? White folks.
White people.
So let me get this straight. So you leaving traditional religiosity because you say the white folks have tainted that, only to go and embrace a philosophy that's controlled by white
people. Yeah. Yeah.
And in your idealism, you say, well, since they took the world by force, damn it, we're gonna do the same thing.
And that sounds good.
So Ernie, you were in Vietnam, you got into politics, and you went back home. Guess what we have to evaluate Ernie's, that if we now look at that clip.
That's right.
And now guess what we got on our side?
We got 46 years of evidence. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right. And I'm not sure if that's my last question, but it's close to the end because I want to get to that because that's important. That's important. So, all right. So, if you,
bro, look here. That's why I got 100 PhDs in niggerology, niggerometrics, niggerosis, because I studied the mindset of the Negro, and the Negro. It wasn't until this last year it dawned on me because I knew Negroes don't think. I know they don't think. So it's like, but they doing something, but they're not thinking. And then it hit me. God damn it, they're idealizing, they're romanticizing, they're fantasizing. They're doing everything but thinking because thinking requires you to analyze pros and cons and being objective in your concepts before you now make a decision.
Yeah.
Man, go to the next one.
So if you missed the beginning of the show, you're listening to the Revolutionary Code, where we bring the truth about how government and politics actually works in every facet of human existence and how that affects our people, Black people here in America, Africa, and the diaspora. This is our 78th episode. And tonight's title is The Savage Reality of American Politics and How We Flip the Public Policy in Our Favor. The Savage Reality of American politics and how we flip public policy in our favor. My name is Tamani M. Wandani. I'm the founder of the Black Gold Nation, and my co-host is Brother Craig B. Lee, the chief consultant of our political strategy and implementation department, as well as our adult education division. Okay, Brother Craig, next question. If we show this video to 100 Black people, 100 melanated African descendants, I put that there specifically, most of them would say Brother Ernie is on point, he's spot on, they would agree with him.
Yeah.
But after hearing everything, chances are they will do nothing to cement a reality to put us in a position so that we're not always targets and victims of white supremacy racism. The question is, why do you think that is? Why do you think if we had 100 melanated African descendants to watch that video, watch that clip, most of them, if not all of them, will be blown away by the brother and his words, but will do close to nothing, if anything at all, to change the reality that the brother is speaking about? Why do you think that is?
It's real. Everything gets down to those 6 pillars of empowerment, and the first 2, without spirituality, without organic right culture, the African descendant is impotent.
Mm-hmm.
And without those 2 pillars, you lack the power of critical thought. You lack the power to spiritually connect to the Creator, to unlock, unleash, and activate your third eye, unlock, unleash, and activate your supernatural power, which is your spirituality.
That's right.
Therefore, your whole agenda is to yip and yell and tell your oppressor what they need to do versus what the hell you need to do.
That's right.
And I'm glad you asked that question, because after I get off this call, I gotta take my ass to Planet Fitness. And I was thinking about this earlier today. Tamani, if a person wants to get in shape, lose weight, build up muscle, strengthen their core, strengthen their upper body, do push-ups do themselves?
No.
Themselves.
No, sir.
Do weights lift themselves?
They do not.
So there has to be some kind of goddamn work
On somebody's part. Yes, sir.
You gotta be able to put in work in order to achieve whatever desired goal you're striving for. And in this game of liberation, empowerment, and advancement, bro, your job can't be to strike fear into your oppressor and say what the hell you. Let's do another case analysis. Let's do the 21st century Ernie Chambers analysis. Who would that be?
Dr. Umar Johnson.
But let's do better than Umar.
Okay.
Because this cat rallied the guns and they were.
Oh, yeah. The Grandmaster, what's his name?
Whatever his goddamn name. The not fucking around.
Yeah, the NFAC. Grand, yeah, that guy, yeah.
And named it the not fucking around crew.
That's right.
Now, where is he at right now?
He's either DJing or he's in a church, one or the other.
Yeah, he preached. Wait a minute. But I thought you weren't fucking around.
He changed his mind.
In one rally, they shot each other. Because they ain't know how to hold a damn gun. But we gon' if Breonna Taylor killer, if he ain't put in jail, we gonna burn it down. Bruh, the theatrics of the Negro. Bruh, I know the white folks gotta be sitting back like.
Yeah, they gotta be laughing, man. Like, are these guys serious?
And so we got too many case analyses.
Yes, sir.
And we can use to show that the rhetoric of Ernie Chambers and the Black Panther Party and brother, that is not a solution. It makes you feel good. It makes grassroots people believe that something is going on to some degree. But at the end of the day, brother, if you're not changing public policy, if you're not creating corporate entities, for-profit, non-profit, to now leverage equity for your people, bro, you're just playing games.
Just talking and wasting time.
And wait,
And in that case, putting people in a position that they really could get hurt. For real, for real.
for real.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. Brother Ernie does an excellent job of describing the philosophy and the system of white supremacy, racism, when he says, quote, "You're treaty breakers, you're liars, you're thieves, you rape entire continents and races of people, your religion means nothing, your law is a farce. We see it every day," end quote. So, Brother Craig, this one statement pretty much sums up all we need to know about the architects, engineers, and managers of the system. Question: if you could get Black people to firmly grasp, if you, Brother Craig B. Lee, if you can get Black people to firmly grasp and understand this one simple truth, what could we realistically accomplish?
I mean, now we can start to mobilize and organize to advance the agenda of acquiring local territories and controlling public policy at the local level. I mean, you would detoxify if Negroes could embrace what he said, it began to detoxify their minds, and now move beyond idealism and romanticism and fantasy into a world of what I call realistic optimism. See, you can be optimistic if you know you're putting in work, but you got to deal with reality.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to deal with reality now. You know, if you're 485 pounds, if you say you can beat Usain Bolt in a 100-meter dash, we know that would never happen.
Probably not.
I don't care how much you believe in Jesus, how much you believe in Allah, that ain't gonna ever happen, right? So there are things that you got to do to even get on the track, to even say you want to compete with that brother, right? And so if we get our people out of idealism and fantasy, because you know one of the greatest lies, there are a couple of great lies that's told to people. One of them is sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt.
Right.
That's one of the great. That's probably the greatest lie that's ever been told. Okay, because words have been used to enslave, murder, kill, you know, the whole nine, right? And the people who actually order hits, they don't never get their hands dirty, right?
That's right.
But they speak the words, whether it's verbally or written, right? The other great lie that's told is, baby, you can be whatever you want to be. And the only reality of that statement is if you're limited in your thinking and you're talking about that from a basic occupational level. But no, you'll never be president of this gangster system. You will never do anything of tangible worth until you move these obstacles out of your way. And to tell children that's what sells them on this illusion of the American dream. So we have to be realistic and we have to be optimistic at the same time, because we live in a multidimensional reality.
Yep. All right. So Brother Ernie also states, quote, your Jesus is contaminated, just like all the other stuff you've tried to force upon us, end quote. How do we know that there's been no trying to force Jesus? That forcing is over, and we've drunk the Jesus Kool-Aid. So how do we know that there is no attempting to contaminate us with Jesus? How do we know that that's actually been that's checkmate? They've accomplished that.
You got over 300 churches in Shreveport. You probably got 1,000 Negro churches in Houston. You probably got 1,000 Negro churches in Dallas. the church has been co-opted big time. I mean, the origin of the church was already rooted in the slave owners.
That's right.
I mean, the preacher was the extension of the slave owner, right?
Mhm.
So that's the history of the African descendant preacher pastor in America.
Yeah.
But there were those who tapped in to their spirituality and started to dissect the words. Your Nat Turners, your Gable Presses, your Denmark Vesey's. These people started to read something totally different, which is why
Yeah.
if you go back to the TV series Roots, I remember a scene where Master Reynolds was in the room with his brother and his wife, and of course his brother is sleeping with his wife unbeknownst to Master Reynolds, and they're discussing the Negroes reading. And his wife says, why not just go on and teach them how to read? And they look at each other, no, it'll complicate their goddamn mind. We can't. They have that. Because if you create a system whereby now people start to learn the word,
Yep.
the symbols, and the policies and the mechanisms of your system, it's like, now they can begin to make some moves that they normally wouldn't make.
Right.
So the evidence, yet again, is here. 300 plus churches throughout. I mean, some of your smallest Negro towns, we have like 20, 30, 40 churches, and that still ain't nothing going on.
That's right.
And then the final evidence, again, that's why I love history. All you got to do, and this is the greatest case analysis to show the indoctrination of the Negro, is what happened at Mother Emanuel AME just a few years ago in Charleston, South Carolina.
Right. Yeah.
They in goddamn prayer meeting. Now, damn. Okay, I'm gonna let you slide. Jesus ain't with you at the boat. Jesus ain't with you now you divorced. Okay, he wasn't with you in your goddamn relationship. Jesus ain't with you. Your punk ass didn't study, so your ass have flunked out of school. So Jesus wasn't with you then. Okay, I'm gonna give Jesus a break. But goddamn, Jesus got to be with you in the church. Jesus got to be with you in the church, man.
Yeah.
If Jesus ain't with you in the church, what the hell can Jesus be?
Definitely makes you wonder, don't it?
Okay. And now the first thing out of these Negroes' mouths, I just wanted to be stated for the record, I forgive him. I forgive him.
That's crazy. That is crazy, man. Yeah.
So that's why I was like, just let him off. Like in the Dallas case, where the white girl murders both of them John.
And they're hugging him, and they're hugging her.
And so the brothers on the stand, I just wanted to be known we love her. So when the decision was made that they weren't gonna get no money, I said, yes, don't give their ass no damn money. If you forgive them, let her ass go.
That's right. Yeah.
If you forgive them, they don't need. The concept of forgiveness is got to be the most retarded concept. I asked the sister just the other day. She said, well, I know, and the only way that I was able to get over being dealt with the way that I was dealt with was I had to forgive that person. I asked her, I said, so if you had never heard about Jesus and God and this concept of forgiveness, do you think that if you had talked to somebody, peel these layers back, and then work to empower yourself, do you think you could have gotten beyond the trauma without the concept of forgiving somebody who has not done anything to earn your forgiveness? I mean, how does that work? That somebody does something to you, they don't do anything to atone for what they've done to you, but you forgive them, and you're told that you got to do that in order for you to move on. Bruh, that's the coldest Jedi goddamn mind trick that I've ever. But here's where I ask the Negro now. This is why I like to go into scripture. This is why you can't throw the Bible away. I go into the same damn scripture now, and I say to them before I take them to where they gotta go, I say, so are you greater than your God and your Jesus? Oh no, that God is the greatest. I say, are you sure? Yeah, God is. So show me in your goddamn scripture where your God forgave his damn enemy. Because I show you, goddamn God was killing up a lot of goddamn folks.
That's right. Yeah.
So your concepts make no sense. So I can understand how Ernie matriculated to that Eurocentric concept of atheism, but you can't never go there.
Right.
Because what they are doing is rolling with religiosity and not spirituality, and those are two different concepts.
Right. And when you make the mistake of throwing out, you correctly throw out religiosity, but then you throw away spirituality with it, and
Exactly.
and you throwing away your secret weapon. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to briefly read our updated description of the plutocrats, oligarchs, and aristocrats, the architects, engineers, and managers of the philosophy, system, and game of capitalistic white supremacy racism. And I want to read this updated description because we think the way we think because of how we've been conditioned and taught to think. So this is an updated description of those that run this system. A critical thinking, paranoid, psychotic, schizophrenic, serial killing, and mass murdering genius. We have got to give the white boy credit because he's done a number on Black people, and our destruction is on automatic pilot. Next question. Brother Ernie says, quote, I wish you followed Jesus like we follow him, because if you did, we'd be in charge by tomorrow, end quote. Brother Craig, question, if that were to happen, if we were in charge tomorrow, what would change and why or why not?
If we're in charge, hell, we'll give it right back and within a goddamn month, because you still got the same slave mentality that and the white person is still your standard.
Yep.
You see, whenever the Negro does all this comparative analysis, just like I read a post just yesterday about the Will Smith deal. Well, Woody Allen did this, and such did this, and such did. They ain't kicked them out for no 10 years. Well, first and foremost, we gotta compare apples, oranges. Yes, what you're saying is true that these people did heinous acts, but they did heinous acts outside of the damn television program.
Yep.
Went and slapped another brother on goddamn TV.
On TV for everybody to see.
So Will Smith wouldn't have did that to no white person. We know that.
Yeah.
Right? The damn joke that was told by Regina Hall was more disrespectful than the Chris Rock joke. You know you weren't gonna slap her, because then you would have really been over with at that particular point. But everything was a comparative analysis with the white folks who have committed crimes, Harvey Weinstein, all of that. So here's the question I asked you in a Negro. When did the pale skin become your standard for living?
That's right. Yeah.
So when you ask the question that you just asked, if the Negro was in charge, because there was a Negro in charge, okay? It was a Negro in charge of the show.
Yeah.
So what do they have? Drama.
Mm-hmm.
Drama.
Yeah.
And brother A-Town is correct. Will Smith, a white boy came up and kissed him. He didn't punch and knock him out. I mean, you're supposed to kick him in his ass.
Yeah. Well, he did smack the white boy that tried to kiss him.
Yeah, but he ain't go in the paint.
Oh no.
Okay, he ain't going to paint now. I mean, that's when you got to brutalize somebody at that point.
That's right.
But my point is the standard of operating is completely a Eurocentric standard. So now what would happen is we would turn power and control right back over. And what case analysis do we have of that? Africa, the African countries, and other countries that are perceptively now under the control of the Negro, and yet they're still oppressing their own folks.
Their own people. That's right. That's right. All right. So tonight's show title, as a reminder, is quote, "The Savage Reality of American Politics and How We Flip Public Policy in Our Favor," end quote. So Brother Ernie makes a lot of powerful statements, powerful points, but his most incorrect statement was what he said in the very beginning. He says, quote, "I can't solve the problem," end quote. Yeah. How incorrect is this statement, Brother Craig?
Well, I mean, again, if you understand that we only have two problems.
That's right.
And the first problem is something that he is correct, he cannot solve, which is the philosophy, system, and game of capitalistic white supremacy, which is really what he's, focused on.
Right.
He is absolutely 100% correct.
That's right.
In that. But the second problem, which is a byproduct of the first problem,
yep,
which is no empowerment in our individual lives and in our collective lives as African descendants in America and throughout the diaspora, we can
That's right.
solve that.
Yeah.
Those of us who are committed and about that life, who are hybrids and grassroots folks, we can mobilize, organize to now liberate, empower, and advance ourselves at the local level.
Right.
And now set the prototypes for other entities to be able to do that. And because that's the only way that we're going to get any equity in this country and throughout the world. It's not going to happen any other way because nobody else is going to do it for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything he says about what white people do and how they control stuff and how they legislate, blah, 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 all that stuff, if you were in control locally, you'd be able to flip and reverse all of that.
Exactly.
Because you control the local space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question. So how do we fundamentally and realistically do what you just said? How do we flip public policy in our favor by being in more control locally? How do we fundamentally and realistically make that happen?
Well, right now, Craig Lee is preparing to run for the council, Shreveport this year, election in November, but we're now engaged actively. So you mobilize, organize around entities here. Brother Lloyd is now understanding that he's going to have to run there next year.
Yep. And
I'm so glad I allowed him the opportunity to get to the point that he made that decision on his own. I always knew that was the decision he was going to have to make because we have to create a prototype for the entities that we have to train. You can't just go get anybody and talk about, okay, let's put them in. No, because you're still believing that Black is based on skin pigmentation and not the mind of the African descendant. Black is not skin pigmentation, that's melanin. Black is the state of mind of a melanated African descendant who is about the business of the liberation, empowerment, and advancement of the people. So we have to have those entities running, but we have to be able to train them. So my campaign now establishes that overall reality. We make the breakthrough in Shreveport, bruh. It's over. It's over. Because I'm gonna help put most of these Negroes in jail when I get in office. I'm gonna help boss put these sellout Uncle Tom Negroes who are stealing money from the people, who are sitting up playing games with these folks and doing nothing. Oh, you need them to go to jail? Let's help them go to jail. So we can now create an opening in a particular seat. That's so we can put those people who we're training about that life in those. I am, bruh, it's straight war. You can't battle, you cannot directly battle the architects, the engineers, and the managers of the philosophy, system, and game of capitalistic white supremacy until you get rid of these blocking ass Negroes throughout America. Because their job is to block for them. And God damn it, they do their job well.
And that's why it's so important that we understand that there are 6 factions to
Exactly.
of being an African descendant. We got to understand who's who and what's what. So last question, Brother Craig. Well, last before your final takeaway, your last takeaway. And this goes to what you were just talking about as it relates to Brother Ernie. So Brother Ernie Chambers was the longest serving state senator in Nebraska history, having represented North Omaha for 46 years. The question is, are you aware of any fundamental, long-standing public policy changes that affected North Omaha's grassroots populations
Really?
that he sponsored or that he was responsible for?
Really? Really?
Yeah,
Really?
I had to ask because I didn't know in the beginning that you didn't know who he was. I didn't know who the brother was, but when I learned that he was in the politics, I'm like, wow, 46 years.
Yeah, look, bro. The only thing you could accomplish with that is tokenism. I'm quite sure he was probably responsible for the Malcolm X legislation that to do this. It's all symbolism. It's all tokenism. There ain't gonna be no change. You don't even have population to make nothing happen on that list. It's all about the votes, baby. I applaud him for being there, but what I would want to know, and his tenure pretty much says this. What I would want to know, since he said he learned the game of the white man, what leadership, grassroots leadership apparatus has he established?
Right. Yeah. With that much time, you should have a pipeline of people coming from the grassroots straight into office to run and do things.
Now guess how I know he hasn't done that?
Never heard of it?
No. Not only that, his ass stayed in office for 9,000 years.
Right. So he wasn't trying to train anybody to take his place.
Bro, because you got the intergenerational conflict.
That's right.
See, bro, if you're not, remember now, he is an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
He is an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what regulates you to roll with an ethical or moral conduct?
Spirituality.
And okay, so he don't believe in that. What is his standard of existing based on?
White people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't have an ethical or moral compass that you could point to. Everything you say you're focused on is how white folks roll, with the exception of putting systems in place.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
See, the Negro just be talking when they say these things.
That's
But
right.
when we peel the layers back on what you're talking about, you really get exposed that you're about the idealism. So now what you're promoting is the pseudo gangster rhetoric that Negroes like to hear. And guess what we call that in politics? Political theater.
Right. Right.
You're engaging in political theater because you know the Negro don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can use that to your advantage. Yes, sir.
Now look and see what his party affiliation is.
You already know, or you want me to check?
Look and see what it is.
Okay.
I don't know.
Give me a second.
Watch this. Watch this.
It's coming. It says that he is independent.
All right.
Yeah.
So now, see how long he's been independent.
Let me see if it says. I don't see where it says. I don't see where it says. I'm on this Wikipedia page. I don't see where it says he was ever anything other than independent. I would assume he started Democrat, but I don't know.
Yeah, and more than likely he did. But my point there is, so you're independent. If I don't see a system that you've put in place to get other people elected, that's telling me where you were at.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, okay, I'm looking here at this thing. He ran for United States Senate in '88 as a New Alliance Party candidate.
Yep.
He ran for governor in '74 and in '94, and he received less than 1% of the vote, right? So I would want to see what structure that you have in place to now create new legislation. I mean,
Right.
new
New leadership. Yeah.
in your state. Okay. And here's something that tells me where this is at. Nebraska's LGBT community has considered Chambers an ally since the 1970s.
Yeah.
That tells me something right there.
Yeah.
He co-sponsored a bill to prohibit employment discrimination by sexual orientation. So you can see where he's at within that overall dynamic.
Yeah. I wonder if they have a large voting block in North Omaha.
I'm quite sure they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before I get to the last question about your one takeaway, it is interesting what Brother Chambers, Brother Ernie says in the video to the pastor. He says that if you were to take this conversation to your congregation, they'd probably throw you out. And the white dude does eventually leave his church because he's trying to he's trying to integrate the church. And the white people are saying, no, we're not having it. We want them to have nice things and be good people, but they can't be it with us because I just don't like them. And he eventually leaves the church. So that's kind of interesting that it didn't work out. So last question. If you could only give everyone who's with us tonight, everybody who watches the recording from what we've discussed, you can only give them one takeaway that they will have with them for the rest of their lives based on what we talked about tonight. What would that one takeaway be?
Governmental politics is a gangster game. And in America, especially, you have to look at this thing on a multidimensional level, and you have to have your mind open for critical thought. And if that doesn't happen, you will never understand how savage and diabolical and hypocritical this game really is, because they will use the preacher, they will use teachers, they will use the pimps, the dope dealers. They'll use everybody, which goes back to the Matrix when Morpheus was teaching Neo through the program. The Matrix can assume anybody's
That's right.
identity.
Yeah.
And this is what this is all about. And so for those of us who are about the business of the liberation, empowerment, and advancement of African descendants in America and throughout the world, we have to have a firm understanding of this. And again, deal with this from realistic optimism versus any form of idealism,
Right.
romanticism, and fantasy.
So I'm glad you made that statement, because it reminds me when he's in the city, he's walking through explaining to Neo what the Matrix is all about, and he says, if we have in essence, this is not a quote, if we haven't unlocked their minds, we haven't freed their minds, they are our enemies.
Yeah,
because they still represent the system and they still work on behalf of the system because their minds aren't freed.
exactly.
Is that how you roll? If you know a person's mind isn't free, do you, Craig Lee, consider them an enemy?
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't know what they're thinking.
Exactly.
You don't know the thing. You don't know what they're gonna do.
Exactly.
Cool.
Oh,
All right.
So I'm not hostile. I'm not hostile to them until they show me where they're at.
Right.
But I do consider them an enemy.
Yeah, dig it. Okay. Well, that concludes tonight's show. We're gonna open this thing up for Q&A. Brother Naru has turned his camera on. Brother Naru, questions or comments for Brother Craig?
Yeah, I have a question for both of you. First, Brother Tamani, do you know if Brother Ernest Chambers was part of any Black revolutionary organizations when he was a youth? You have that information?
When he was a youth?
Or youth, young adult.
Okay. I don't know, Naru. Like I said, I just discovered who the brother was. There was
no worries. Just curious. I don't
know. But
I can look that up. Look that up myself. Yeah. I thought you might have that information. When you're in your Wikipedia.
I know, right?
All right. So, Brother Craig, this is a question for you. There are many theories, viewpoints about how white people came into existence. Do you have a theory, or do you share in one that already exists?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The whole Yakub concept that Elijah Muhammad promoted sounds plausible. I mean,
that's a grafting technique, right?
Grafting. Mm-hmm. And the reason I can say that sounds plausible is because sons or children try to emulate what their parents have done, and the first entity who started to try to emulate grafting and creating or cloning an entity is white folks. And so I think that has some merit. I don't really get caught up in thinking about it for the most part. It's a good, discussion to have at some point. And the reason I don't get caught up in it is because, they're here.
No, it ain't gonna make no difference. It's just a curiosity on mine that, how you might view it. Some people talk about the Ice Age, but in actuality, it don't really matter. Like you said, they're here.
Yeah. And I got to roll with that one better than the brother who was on Hidden Colors, who said it was because they were in a cold climate.
Mm-hmm.
See, that doesn't make any sense to me, because you can go and look at Eskimos, so-called Eskimos, they ass in cold climate all the goddamn time, and their skin pigment is still dark, right?
Yes, sir.
You can find African people in the European cold as well, and their skin pigment is still dark. So I don't see that dynamic and whatnot. I just don't get that one. But it's not something that I'm particularly engaged in. But if I had to go with one, it would be that one based on the Yakub concept, because there's some perspectives mentioned about that even in biblical scripture on that end. And I do know that you can have, of the only two entities, you can bring two highly melanated African descendants together, and that could produce an albino.
It's true.
Right? So there's
but that albino is gonna have African features.
Follow me now.
Okay.
We're talking about a grafting process.
Yeah, we're grafting now. Yeah.
So that albino can then be grafted where that pigment now is filtered down. And of course, Naru, with your ancestors, some of them being from Louisiana, you do know that is how they roll in a large part of Louisiana and South Louisiana. They believe in that grafting process and maintaining that colorism.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's some merit to that. I just don't necessarily get involved in it, but I think the Yakub thing would be the thing that I would roll with.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, brother, and again, good luck on your campaign, brother. I'm looking forward to seeing you win.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Amen. So does anyone else have a question or comment for Brother Craig?
Yeah, Brother Craig, excellent presentation.
Yes, sir.
Just for my question, but also not Louisiana, but also the Proctor family in the DMV. If you ever go to DMV, you see Black folks, and they got this other Black folks, super light-skinned features, but they can pass. But the Proctor family who intermix with themselves, so they go third and fourth cousins, and they keep that. You meet a Proctor, they all related, and Hickmans in Ohio all related, and they look the same. They're similar to the Proctors, but all the Hickmans in Ohio are super light,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing that you have in Louisiana. But my question is, in terms of the illusion of inclusion.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about it. I know when King started to change and talk about economic rights as opposed to civil rights, why did they actually turn on him? Because you're mentioning the platform that we had that charge into an integrated house is burning. So what other platform did he have that became a threat to the status quo, or they were just tired of him, just wanted to take him out? So I never understood why they would change up like that. They knew eventually he was going to talk about that if he had the Poor People's Campaign. It's about economics now, because it's a capitalist society. But I mean, that other piece always bewildered me in terms of why they took him out like that.
Well, if you think about it, Brother Mike, not only did he start to talk about economics, he was against the war. He was against the war. And so now you become perceptively unpatriotic. And so you got him going against the war, and now he's starting to talk about the money. So if you're now talking against the war, which is the economic machine for a lot of the architects and engineers, and now you start to talk about redistribution of the wealth that they're making from industries like the war and other industries. Now, wait a minute. You were cool when you was talking about dreaming and little white boys and little white girls and, getting together and all of this. That was cool because we know that that's not realistic. But now when we start talking about the war and we start talking about the money, now we're coming from idealism down to tangible reality. And so the premise now becomes, if this now, and hold on, I'll read it from the damn book. Hold on, let me get the book. I'll read it from the book. Hold on, let me get the book. Let me find the book. It's in the answer to your question is right. And what I'm saying is right in the book, The Assassination of Malcolm X. Is in the back of this book in terms of the COINTELPRO documents that were laid out by J. Edgar Hoover. Hold on one second. Let me get this right quick there, bro. Find this one deal. Where is it at? Where I have that thing at? I would not be able to find it right now, but I will print it out. But Mike, what J. Edgar Hoover said, he referenced that if King would abandon his concepts of nonviolence and embrace the militant Black nationalist philosophy and agenda, he could then start to really become an iconic entity to the grassroots. And so that became a fear, because if this dude now stops talking about the Christian indoctrination agenda and now starts to talk about the money and those things that are tangible for Black folks, he already had a charismatic voice. He would now be coming together in alignment with who? Malcolm X. So you can't let them get together. If they start to figure this thing out, now we got issues, you see? And so you gotta now take, and then you gotta go back and understand there were 39 Both of them were 39. The Black Panthers, these cats were in their 20s, right? Early in the ball game. So there's no way you would have known all of the stuff. I'll be 55 this year. I've had enough time to work in corporate America, to work in understanding all of these things. I've had enough time to assess, process, analyze, work, make some errors. They didn't have enough time, and they were indoctrinated with religiosity. King from Christianity, Malcolm from Christianity and Islam. And so he became a threat that if this dude now gets it, oh, we got major issues because he has a platform and he has a voice. He gotta go. He gotta go. Because we can't have you speaking out against the war and now starting to talk about the money. We can't have that. We need the people dreaming about Christianity and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to note that when you're talking about the dreams and whatnot, that's cool. Keep those Negroes heads in the clouds. But when you start talking about real things, and it affects the money, that's a problem.
Yeah.
All right. So anyone else got a question or comment for Brother Craig? Question or comment going once? Question or comment going twice? All right, Brother Craig, any, before I ask you closing comments, I think Queen Mother has been on the show before, but I think this is Brother Nate's H-Town. Brother Nate is with us here in Houston, Brother Craig. You will meet him soon.
Okay.
So I think this is Brother Nate's first show, so I do want to welcome him. I'm glad he made it. And it's good to see Queen Mother back. She's been there before. Yeah, solid, brother. He's the brother that works with me with the youth, and Brother Craig, he is literally teaching the youth how to build computers, how to fix cell phones, and A+ certification. So Brother Nate is going to be, and he's a candidate to run our national IT department. So he's going to be vital, man, to the things that we're doing in Houston with the youth. The brother is absolutely phenomenal. And he's going to do big things with us. So I'm glad to see that Brother Nate made. He's a solid brother, very good brother. Very good brother.
Brother Nate, it's a pleasure, Brother Nate. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, like I said, you will see and hear from him again.
and look, part of the revolution, Tamani, that's another thing, brother. You know, this technology piece, brother, you got to have individuals like Brother Nate in the mix. We got to be covered in all of the areas that we've established Black Gold Nation and what I'm doing here in the city of Shreveport. You got to have those entities. And when grassroots people unplug from the learning process under the premise that this is the white man's education, everything that this pale skin entity has established, created, is based off of our thing.
That's right.
The college system, the learning system, the goddamn free enterprise system, all of this is based on our thing. And it's just so sad to know that so many grassroots people have unplugged from learning.
Yep.
From learning. And one of the other biggest lies, I'll say this in closing, because we did our luncheon today for our students at Southwood, Dads on Duty. And the other biggest lie that's told, college ain't for everybody. One of the greatest lies ever told. And I figured this thing out. Mike and I graduated from Xavier University, and I figured this thing out, Brother Mike, right before I walked on stage in 1989 to get my degree from our phenomenal president, Norman Francis. And I was like, man, what have these 4 years really been about? And it hit me, learning how to learn. See, anybody can learn how to learn, whether it's at a liberal arts institution, a technical trade school, whatever, because all of that's higher levels of learning. That's all it is. So when I hear college ain't for everyone. What you're really saying is learning ain't for everyone. And we know that's a goddamn lie. But if we can get you to unplug from learning, now we got you.
Yeah.
Now we got you.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so I leave you with that. But I thank you guys for participating. And like I said, brother, it's time to get it.
And what you said about Brother Nate, man, that of course that's why we're having the national leadership election, because just like the team you are building there locally to cover all the bases, just like the constant reminders that you make to us that this is a team sport. We got to have people who are down for the cause, who understand their avenue of approach, if you will. And since we're being attacked on every avenue, we got to have somebody pointing out who knows what to shoot at. And that's another thing that Brother Nate brings to the table. He's also going to teach the youth how to use weapons safely and properly. So the brother is absolutely phenomenal and dynamic in what he brings to the table. And if he wins the election, he's going to do some fantastic things. So on that note, I do thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. Hope to see everybody next Thursday for the next Revolutionary Code. Always remember that no one can do everything, but if everyone does something, everything will get done. And always remember that nothing is more sacred than the empowerment and freedom of Black people, because if Black people don't make it, it don't matter what you're into, you're not going to make it because you Black with us. So on that note, thank you guys very much. God bless you. Y'all have a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right, bro. All right.
Bye, Queen Mother.